Okay, now for something completely different. Our next speaker has got an amazing CV. He comes from a really diverse background, and I'm sure he's going to provide us with a very stimulating end to the day. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Peter Cruz.
Thank you very much for taking your time and for giving me the opportunity to talk to you a little bit, to reflect with you a little bit about a topic which is of interest for me now for more than 25 years. It's the topic of handling complexity in intelligent networks. But the first 15 of these 25 years, I worked on that topic from a perspective which may seem to you far off any form of practical doing. For 15 years, I have been working on this topic from the perspective of an experimental psychologist, neurophysiologist. My big question was how the brain makes chaos in order to make order. So I was a very theoretical guy, and then suddenly in this career, my father-in-law died, and I had to overtake a company, 175 years old, producing garden furniture. And now you can imagine that coming from neurophysiology, just standing in front of plastic processing machines and metal processing machines was really a change in my life. So I started something totally new, and this new ended up with a consulting company. We are working on this topic. Maybe I can have the slides now. We are working on these topics of processing complexity in intelligent networks now from the perspective of a consulting company specialized on creating methods, computer-based methods. We are working with 60 people in Bremen, and just to invite you to visit us a little bit in Bremen, we are working in the harbor area in Bremen. Our office is over there. There's a lot of things going on in Bremen. So just to visit our office there and to come in. We are just working a lot with computer technology, and we have just a big room where the people are sitting around in the garden in a way, and where we have all our things together and no borders, no walls in between. And as you can see here, we are quite affine with techniques, quite affine with computer technology. Our big questions are more or less you can call it, the intangibles. So we are working about cultural factors, and if you, for example, want to measure culture, this is really something which is not easy to do, but I think we have found some ways to do so. But the major question we are interested in is this one. We share this question with the Center for Collective Intelligence of the MIT. How can people and computers be connected in a way that they are together more intelligent than they are alone? So it's the major question of collective intelligence we are working on. I would like to show you the ideas I would like to present by going through 3 chapters. The first chapter is about the challenges in global networks. Why are we talking about networks so much? The second part is how to cope with complex dynamics, and this is more or less from the psychological perspective, how do people cope with complex dynamics? And the third part is, and I can't go away from this question because this is more or less the question of my life, can we look at a company like a social brain? Is it possible to transfer the ideas of the brain science in a way to how a company is functioning? This is a major idea I'm working on now for years. Let me start with the first part, challenges in global networks, and I would like to invite you to have a little mind experiment. Think of yourself being an alien for a moment, approaching the world from the outer space, asking yourself, what is mankind doing in the moment? If you go from this distant perspective, there's a quite strange perception you can have. We have done in the last years a real big, huge project, far bigger than the Cheops pyramids, far bigger than the Chinese walls. And this big project has only one title, it's networking. We have invested everything to enhance connectivity in the system of the world. And whenever you enhance connectivity in a system, you will pay 2 prices from a system theory perspective. The first price is anytime complexity. Whenever you enhance connectivity in a system, the complexity of solutions is exploding. But there's another price you have to pay. Whenever you enhance connectivity in a system, you have more and more feedback loops. And because of these feedback loops, you pay the price of change dynamics. So whenever you enhance complexity and connectivity in a system, you pay the price of complexity and you pay the price of dynamics. And we do anything to enhance this complexity and dynamics more and more. If you look, for example, in the internet, we have already in the internet a connectivity which is close to the factor of 10 to the human brain. In the human brain, you can combine any cell with any cell via 2 steps. In the internet, it's a connectivity of 19 steps between any page. So we have really a connectivity which is extremely high. And whenever you have such a system and do anything to let these things explode, many people are invited to be in this system. And whenever you have a system like this, one thing is for sure. You have a system which can hype in a millisecond. It can go up and down in a millisecond, and this is typical. There was a quite interesting commercial from Coca-Cola. When I saw this commercial first time, I said, hey, this is ridiculous. But after that, I realized this is already true. Please have a look at this little commercial.
Coke side of life.
In a high connectivity system, scandals can be created as quick as success stories. Some of the scandals you all know. This one here, for example, was one of the first one I realized. There was this car in trouble in Sweden, and it was going around the world in a millisecond. There was another one starting in the north. This was this one here, the 12 Mohammed cartoons, which shake the world. And this was really a shaking the world in a millisecond. It was going around the world as a scandal. And this is another one here. It was the end of the political career of the former presidential candidate John Kerry, and it was starting by just having an inappropriate joke. And this inappropriate joke was published on YouTube, and it was really going around the world, ending his career. Just to have a look at this little joke he tried, and it was not a very good one.
We're here to talk about education, but I want to say something before that. You know, education, if you make the most of it, you study hard, and you do your homework, and you make an effort to be smart, you can do well. If you don't, you get stuck in Iraq.
Oh, this was very hard for the veterans and was going around the world in a millisecond. So when you're a politician today, please be very, very good with your words, because it may be that you are just videotaped and in the internet, and then it's already gone. But it's not only scandals, it's also success stories. One success story was for me very interesting. It was the first one I realized in this. It was a little company in Berlin. They had the idea to put cold coffee in tins. And they were just starting, and then they created some commercials which were really going around the world, millions and millions of times downloaded. I would like to show you one of this. And this commercial here was even in the Tonight Show of Jay Leno. So it was a little company in Berlin really going around the world by producing some commercials. Your task is look behind the car. Please just follow the car. Good morning. Downloaded millions and millions of time just to frighten the colleagues in the office, because this is the only reason why you do this, things like this. Millions and millions of time downloaded. A huge budget would be necessary to get such an effect, but it was possible. And there are a lot of stories like this. This one here, for example, you may remember. It was just a guy from Sweden who produced the noise of a motorbike by his own voice. It was like this.
Ding, 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 ding.
And this little tone was afterwards a ringtone, and it was just, for example, in UK, it earned 14 million euro, just in UK. It was really going around the world and was hyped in a very short period of time. And then someone from Germany started to make a little bit music and laid the music beneath, and it was just a hit single going 800,000 albums, gold status in 20 countries. So you really ask what's going on there. We have in July 2006, we had already more than 100 million downloads a day in YouTube. Just remember the number, what's going on there. So the networks are really crazy by this. And this was here for me the most ridiculous thing. I was sitting in China looking CNN, and then I realized this story here. It was really in CNN, and it was just a little polar bear from Berlin.
Most famous bear since Winnie the Pooh.
Now, Canute, the polar bear cub, made his public debut at the Berlin Zoo on Friday.
And I would have called him Newt, but what do I know? People from around the world scrambled just to get a little peek at this guy and dine.
It was a little bit strange to sit in China to see such a polar bear from Berlin in the CNN news. For me, it was quite interesting to have this. And he has earned more than 5 million euro additional income for the Zoo Berlin by this little polar bear Knut. So it was quite interesting that this is possible, and there are real figures behind this. In a high connectivity system, marginal events can create a worldwide hype overnight. This is typical for high connectivity systems, but on the other part, even a huge marketing budget may end up having nearly no adequate effect. And this is interesting for me to realize. You can invest a lot and you get nothing, and you can invest nothing and you get a lot. So this is typical for these systems. For example, we had this campaign here in Germany. It was a campaign of a civil society company in Germany, and they invested really a lot in nationwide poster campaigns, TV spots, full-page advertising. They started on 11th of March 2006 with a real big event. They invested a lot of money, and after a year, they had about 50,000 contributions on a forum and a few hundred entries in guest books, and this was realized by Knut in the first weeks. So there was invested a lot, and nothing happened, and on the other part, there was nothing and a lot happened. And so we have to admit that in global networks, success is no longer driven by the one offering something, but by resonance effects in the mind of customers and users. So what we have is a change from a push to a pull. When you get the resonance of the people, then suddenly something is possible. So to know what is the resonance part for the people is very, very interesting to be successful in these things. And the people are more and more powerful. If you look at Wikipedia, it's really interesting what the people are doing there. And first of all people said it's not as qualitative like Brockhaus, for example, and then they realized it is already as qualitative like a good dictionary or a good Brockhaus. We have, when we look at MySpace, MySpace is as big as the eighth biggest nation in the world. So we have a lot of people in these networks already. It's absolutely fascinating that we have, for example, more than 112 million blogs worldwide. This is very interesting for the people doing publishing business, for example, that there is such a competition growing. We have, for example, people who were very successful just by publishing their songs on MySpace. And we have now the strange situation that MySpace Music streamed in the first days after launch, and this is just happening, more than 1 billion songs. So this has been reached, for example, by iTunes after 3 years. So this is really upspeeding in systems, in complex systems, and the customer is a very powerful factor in this. When the customer says yes, then everything can happen in a very short period of time. And the people are really powerful. You may remember this here. We had the situation that the iPhone was exclusively sold by T-Mobile in Germany. And really, a minute later, it was possible to go in the internet on the page www.jailbreakme.com, and you found there how to free your iPhone again. There was an algorithm how to make it free again. So whenever there's someone who wants to limit something, there's someone who gives freedom to the others, and this is in a millisecond. So the customer is really a powerful factor in these systems. But by this, the people in the world have possibilities to engage themselves, possibilities to mobilize like never before. And it's obvious that what they have is a real overload of information. If you look, for example, the people are now quite critical to the internet because they are saying, hey, I cannot handle this any longer. So what we have is a high complex situation for the people. And there the question arises, how do people deal with a high complex situation? And interestingly enough, from a psychological point of view, we have only 5 strategies to deal with high complexity. The first strategy is what we learned in early childhood. It's trial and error. If you don't understand, just try. Sometimes I think this is for the politicians, the only one, but it's just try. And you may remember that it's not so easy in a high complex situation to do it just like this. The second strategy we have is very typical for people, is just to ignore the situation. Just to say, hey, everything is the same. And there's a very, very nice spot, commercial from IBM, which I found absolutely fantastic in this, just showing how people ignore a situation.
The sea is a harsh mistress. No one knows this better than the men who fish the Firth of Forth, bringing back their catch each morning to sell in the old market. Where's Eric then?
He never misses a market.
There was a bad squall last night.
Wretched.
Maybe he ran up on some rocks.
Maybe he was swept overboard.
Maybe he drowned.
Or sharks.
Sharks.
Maybe he already sold his catch online from the boat. Maybe we're on the cusp of something so big we don't even know it. Virtual marketplaces, frictionless economies, the invisible guiding hand of capitalism manifesting itself, even here.
Sharks.
Now you can sell anything from anywhere. Wireless e-business from IBM.
So, whenever someone is asking you to change, please answer sharks. It's very easy. Just keep it as it is. The third thing is where we are really proud of. It's understanding. But please try as a customer to understand the world today. It's no longer possible. So understanding is a good strategy, but not the one we are using in everyday life. The fifth strategy is a very critical one, or a very dangerous one, is to do it by simplification, just cutting out one detail. For example, only concentrating on price, because then everything is easy. The cheapest I will find. But to cut out things, it means to trivialize the system. And please don't trivialize a complex system. The only system you can trivialize is a complicated system. Whenever you have a complex system, it's possible to find a pattern. And there is a Swiss guy who shows or demonstrates us in a beautiful way how critical it is to trivialize a complex system. This is an artist who is cleaning up art. On the left part you have a Picasso, on the right part you have the cleaned up Picasso. And you will realize immediately there is something lost. Maybe this is more ordered, but the pattern is destroyed. And this is what you should be aware of. Whenever you are trivializing a complex system, the pattern is destroyed, so your real possibility to reduce complexity is gone. And this is another example here. I think also Roy Lichtenstein will not be amused by this, but it's a way to make it more simple. The only strategy I'm really believing in the last years is the last one. It's emotional valuation, it's intuition. People are able by their brain to reduce complexity by intuitive pattern recognition. And people are really fantastic in this. I would like to show you a little film sequence from The Guardian, which I found absolutely fantastic. There are 3 little sequences directly behind each other, and you will realize that you have no problem to really immediately understand what's going on. It's just a minute. Please have a look.
An event seen from one point of view gives one impression. Seen from another point of view, it gives quite a different impression. But it's only when you get the whole picture you can fully understand what's going on.
Escape, attack, help. No problem, you realize in a millisecond this is what the brain can do. The brain can reduce complexity by emotional valuation. And this is what the people normally are doing, and because of this it makes so much sense to understand the customer in this world, because he is reacting on emotional resonance. This is what is really going on. And we have a big misunderstanding how we think the human brain is functioning. We always think humans are rational animals. Humans are not rational elements. The cortex is more or less like a consultant, giving you any time a new idea. But the decision is made up in the limbic system. And the limbic system is an unconscious emotional system which is deciding what you are doing. Just to give you a short idea how quick our cortex is in rearranging understanding. Unfortunately, this starts with German, but I'm sure you will immediately understand what's going on. It's a little commercial from the Berlitz School.
Das hier ist mein Sektor. Das hier ist das wichtigste Gerät des Küstenwächters. Das Gerät und das Gerät. Überlebensradar.
Hello? This is the German Coast Guard.
We're thinking.
What are you thinking about?
Yeah, also one possible answer. Huh? Yeah, quite nice. Huh? So this is all about the cortex. Very quick in rearranging your understanding. But now to show you something about the limbic system, which is the really decisive one. It's good to talk a little bit about the limbic system, but it's far better to show you how it's functioning. I would like to show you a little experiment which is very famous in neurophysiology. I show you in a minute a mask, first from the front, normal face. And then it's turning around and you can look from the inside. Please try to look from the inside in this face. First from the front, then turning around, and then from the inside. If it's difficult for you, we can do it again. First from the front, and then it's turning around, and then from the inside. Why the hell is it so difficult to see this face from the inside? Very easy, because your limbic system is stepping in saying no. A face is highly emotional and anytime seen from the front. So it's just the limbic system correcting your perception. There's only one group of people looking at a picture like this saying immediately this is a face from the inside. These are the schizophrenic people. They have a limbic disease. So when every one of you has seen this directly from the inside, please come to me. We have to talk a little bit. I'm a psychologist. I can immediately help a little bit. So whenever you are dealing with people, whatever you are doing, please be sure it's the limbic system deciding what the people are doing, and it's not the rational part. So what we have to do is we have to accept that the values are driving the world, and value is not the ethical part of value. It's the limbic value the people have learned throughout their life. It's the unconscious part steering our behavior. Because of the complexity and dynamics, people tend to act more and more spontaneously and intuitively on basis on these limbic criteria, and these limbic criteria we do not know. So if you directly ask a customer, what do we want to have? He will say maximum comfort, he will say minimum price, or things like this. But what is really driving the customer, you will not get as an answer. You have to figure this out more indirectly. You have to measure the limbic system, otherwise this will not work. And it's interesting enough that on the maximum of the dot-com boom, there was a book, maybe you have realized this, it was the Clue Train scenario, where they said markets are conversations. And this is really true. What is happening in the moment is that people are talking to each other and getting into resonance or not. So it's no longer the one offering something who is the powerful one. It's the one who is able to get into a real conversation with the customer. This is the real thing we have to do. We have to understand the other one. What we have to have as a success factor is, in a way, personal empathy. We have to get into the limbic system of the other one to really be successful in a world like this. Maybe I can show you another little film sequence I found very, very fascinating from a film called Groundhog Day. I don't know whether you know this film. It's a very interesting one, because one person is going through the same situation again and again, and he has just the chance to figure out what the limbic system of a person is all about, and he tries to convince a woman here that he is a really nice guy. It's an uncut sequence.
What are the chances of getting out today?
Van still won't start. Larry's working on it.
Wouldn't you know it? Can I buy you a drink?
Okay.
Jim Beam, ice, water.
For you, miss?
Sweet vermouth in the rocks with a twist, please.
What are the chances of getting out of town today?
The van still won't start. Larry's working on it.
Oh, wouldn't you know it? Can I buy you a drink?
Okay.
Sweet vermouth, rocks with a twist, please.
For you, miss?
The same. That's my favorite drink.
Mine, too. It always makes me think of Rome. The way the sun hits the buildings in the afternoon.
Well, what should we drink to?
To the groundhog.
I always drink to world peace.
Can I buy you a drink?
Okay.
Sweet vermouth, rocks with a twist, please.
For you, miss?
The same. That's my favorite drink.
Mine, too. It always makes me think of Rome. The way the sun hits the buildings in the afternoon.
Well, what should we drink to?
I like to say a prayer and drink to world peace.
To world peace.
World peace.
Yeah, but this is a very unusual situation. He has 3 times the chance to figure out. We don't have. So what we need is methods. We have to be a little bit more structured in this. And this is not so easy. So we try to invent a method how to measure the limbic system, not by putting people into a computer tomography or something, but just by interacting. And I think we were a little bit successful in this, but this is not the topic here. So what we have is we have a very special situation. If I would figure out what is going on in the world, I would say we had just the 5th Kondratiev cycle, and the 5th Kondratiev cycle was a cycle of networking. And the next cycle will be the cycle of value, of identity, of branding and things like this, because the people want to stabilize in a destabilized world, and stabilizing is for people anytime going close to value. And what you can realize in the moment is, for example, this big topic of sustainability. This is a big topic because the people are very resonant to these things. And if you look, for example, at the success story of Bionade and what they can do in pricing, one can really imagine what it's all about when people are close to this resonance effect. I think Bionade was in resonance with what has happened in the mind of the customer, and they were quite successful. They call themselves the official drink of a better world. And maybe you have realized that, for example, eBay has just launched in September 2008 a platform for sustainable goods. And they do so because they know that margin is in this topic. There you can produce even success when you're close to this. So I would say the second success factor I would like to recommend is convincing sustainability. Enhance your reputation and brand value by showing responsible care for people and environment. We have in the moment a big problem, for example, with premium cars, because they have lost the customer at that point. And for Mercedes and for Porsche and for BMW, this is a real problem in the moment, because it's not easy to get such a convincing sustainability in these cars. What we have in the moment, I would like to summarize in a picture like this. We have a real turnaround in the mind of the customer. What we have done throughout the last years, we have tried to be good, cheap and convenient. So what we have done is we tried to management the red oceans by best practice. And what has happened by this is we made everything more equal, because we sourced the things in the same way. We did best practices and so on, and everything is more equal. And now we have a customer who is saying, hey, please be sustainable, be meaningful, and please, please be different. Do it different. And therefore we are now at a special point, because we have to be innovative. And whenever you want to be innovative, you have to change things, and change is not easy to do. So what we have to do in the next years is we have to think about creativity, about innovation. We have to do it different. Just to give you an idea what is meant by a process pattern change when we do it different, like the transference from the straddle to the post pre-flop. Just an example from Audi here, which I found quite nice. This was a real enhancement of the supply chain by doing it different. So we have to do it really different. But whenever you do with people a change like this, please be sure people don't like. because people want to stabilize as long as they can. I would like to show you at that point a little film sequence from a very famous British management school. You may all know this British management school. They have worked a lot about the so-called hysteresis effect, about the inertia of not changing in a changing environment. And this famous British management school is called Monty Python's. Please have a look on this.
Good morning. I'm a bank robber. Please don't panic. Just hand over all your money.
This is a lingerie shop, sir.
Fine, fine. Fine. Adopt, adapt, and improve. Motto of the round table. Well, what have we got?
We've got corsets, stockings, suspender belts, tights, bras, slips, petticoats, knickers, socks, and garters, sir.
Fine, fine. Fine, fine. No large piles of money in safes?
No, sir.
No deposit accounts?
No, sir.
No piles of cash in easy-to-carry bags?
None at all, sir.
No luncheon vouchers?
No, sir.
Fine, fine. Well, adopt, adapt, and improve. Just a pair of knickers then, please.
Yeah. This is what human beings are normally all about. They are trying to do the same again and again and again, and to change, there has to be a reason, because normally people don't do. So if we are talking about something like innovation, we have to talk about why should people do so. Because real innovation, process pattern change, or fundamental change is more or less a situation like starting to an unknown continent. And please think of yourself being in the secure harbor, and there's someone telling you you have to find the new continent. Why should you leave the secure harbor? There are only two motivations people really can have. The one motivation is crisis, because when there is a crisis, they start. And the second motivation is to fall in love, and both is close together. So you have only the possibility to do crisis or to fascinate people. When people are fascinated, they start to the new horizon. So what we should do, and this is more or less the third success factor I want to tell you, is mobilize the people by inspiration. Try to stimulate people's curiosity and readiness for change by fascination and acceptance of instability. We have a lot of instability around. And when I'm talking about instability, it was 5 years, 6 years, 7 years ago, the people said to me, hey, what are you talking about? Today it's not necessary to explain, because everyone knows what instability is all about. But it's even then hard to accept that we need instability to get a change. So what we have to do is we have to actively destabilize in a destabilized situation. And this is counterintuitive. We don't like to do so, but we have to. So to be creative, we have to inspire the people. We have to make them more accepting the unstable situation. And now let me come to the last part, to the company as a social brain. One thing is for sure, when I am talking about instability, you can be sure that the world outside is as unstable as never before. And there is one thing we should have in mind when we are talking about instability. Instability pays a price. Whenever you have instability in a system, you cannot predict any longer what's happening. I can show you this by this little thing I've brought with me. This is one of the things which puzzled the physical people really a lot. This is just a triple pendulum. It's an instrument where you have an inborn instability. Whenever the pendulum is going through a situation like this, the pendulum has to decide whether it's going in this or that direction. And when I give this pendulum a kick, you will realize that it's impossible to predict what is happening. So you have a situation where the whole world plays with this thing here. You cannot predict what is happening because you have an inborn instability in the system. So whenever you have a system which has an inborn instability, and be sure whenever you do something like innovation you have instability, you cannot predict what's going on. And this is something we have to realize. Unstable system cannot be predicted. We have to accept that we are an insecure and in an unstable situation which we cannot predict. And I can assume that in the next years, the decision makers will be really in trouble. Because when the world is more and more unstable, it's more and more difficult to understand what's going on and to predict. The only thing I can recommend to you is try to understand the value system of the customers, because this is the most stable thing left in such a situation. And if you look around, it's really interesting for the decision makers. If you have, for example, this example of biofuel, it was really interesting. First of all, it was a solution of everything, and then some weeks ago, after this, it was just a real mistake. It goes up and down in a very short period of time, and then you have to look at things like this, where you really get into bad feelings about the solution you have promised was the best one last time. Or if we look at the financial market, I think we all know now what crisis can be and what instability is all about. The invisible hand of the market seems not working any longer. So it's really interesting. This, for example, are just the think tanks established in the last decades. It was very interesting that 80% of the think tanks were established after in the last 20 years. So the people are really searching for experts to make decision more secure. This is what they are searching for. So we are in a very special situation. I would like to summarize like this. We had, when we started as human beings, we started with collective intelligence because the world was too complex for us. The natural complexity was too high. And then we started to individualize. This was the story of the last centuries. We tried to do it individually by science and things like this. And now we have created a world which is culturally as complex as the natural world has been. So what we have to do is now, we have to go back from the individual to the intelligent few and to the intelligent many. We have to think about collective intelligence because, to be honest, what is happening outside cannot be understood any longer by a single person. Some years ago we thought it's possible, but if I look at my own entrepreneurial behavior in the moment, I know that whenever I have a decision, I have talked to many people to get a feeling of what's going on, because I'm alone cannot answer this any longer. This is a single situation I'm in. And it was very interesting for me that, for example, the Time magazine already took the collective intelligence of the people in Web 2.0 as Person of the Year. This was very interesting because Americans are very individualistic in their thinking, and to create something like a Person of the Year in the collective intelligence area was for me quite astonishing. And at that point, I would like to recommend to you my absolute hero from the 1950s. It is a theoretical person called Ashby, William Ross Ashby. He has had an idea which is now at the top of the relevance. Is the idea, the Ashby's law of requisite variety. He said already in the 50s, whenever you have a high complex problem system, then you have to have a system as a solution system which is in minimum as complex as the system of the problem. So whenever we have a situation where we are saying the world outside is building networks, then the answer is we have also to build networks, because without building networks, we cannot solve the problems any longer. Not because networks are hip or something, because they are necessary. Ashby's law says we have to have a system which is as complex as the problem system, and when the world is networking, we have to find ourselves in networks trying to use collective intelligence, otherwise it will not work any longer. And if you look at the human brain, and this is an interesting thing, you have only 3 basic mechanisms for intelligence in the human brain. What is making the human intelligent network intelligent? 3 systems. The first system is the arousal system, the reticular system. Whenever you are talking to people or doing something with people, the first thing you have to do is you have to keep them awake. When the brain is not awake, nothing will happen. So the first thing is you need something in the sense of arousal. You need the reticular system. The second thing is connectivity. Enhance connectivity wherever you can. Bring the things together wherever you can. And standardization is the backbone of connectivity. Without standardization, it will not work. But the interesting thing is the last, the evaluation system. And this is most of the time not looked at. Whenever you are taking something like a network, without a shared value system, it will not work, because the value system is stabilizing the network. So what we need is arousal, connectivity, and a stabilizing evaluation process. We need something like a limbic system. If you transfer this to a company, I would say, hey, you need inspiration, mobilize and fascinate people. You need integration, foster the unlimited information flow. And I know it's not easy between the producer and the seller to bring these things together. To have unlimited information flow is not easy to do. And the last thing you need is a shared value system. Without a shared value system, you not even can talk to each other. Because if we do not share a value system, we do not understand each other any longer. So to create meaning, we need a shared value system, we need identity. So what we need is inspiration, integration, and identity. These are the key issues we need in every network to be intelligent. And that people can be intelligent, you can see at the situation like this. Maybe you have realized this. People are planning tracks in a park. But the people usually are going totally different. They have beaten tracks. And these beaten tracks are more or less the intuitive order formation process of the people. And to be close to these beaten tracks is more or less a real success principle. If you know the beaten tracks of the people, then you're close to the system. And please, just to show you how good our brain is in creating patterns, if you look at this one, no computer can realize what's going on here. Here you have a Dalmatian dog and a Dalmatian landscape. Maybe you have already realized the dog, the head is here, here are the legs, here's the body, and here are the legs behind. So you have just a simple picture. If you look at this, you see the dog. But for a computer, it's not possible to see anything because it's too tricky. Our brain can do so. If you look at the next one, you may see something like a landscape, but this is very easy. If you know the solution, you will never forget that this is a simple cow. If you know that the cow, I can show you the same picture after years, and you will realize the cow again, because meaning creates pattern. This is what it's all about. And the last one, if you look at this picture, you immediately detect the seahorse, I'm sure. Which is in there. I'm just starting, and you will see the seahorse, which is just created by your brain, and if it's stopping, it's gone again. So this is what the brain is all about. The brain is a very, very rich and very quick pattern detector, and if you use the wisdom of the crowd, if you use the pattern detection mechanisms of many people, you can be very close, even close to the problems we have today. So my fourth success factor is collective intelligence. Enhance the connectivity in the organization by a shared identity, by maximum transparency and a high degree of standardization, because if you do so, you can be a real intelligent network. So what we have to accept is to talk about network and to talk about hierarchy is not in contradiction. It's just two ways of looking at the same thing. When you are starting with an invention, your company has to be like this. It has to be a network. And when you then go to the selection process, which invention do you want to put in reality? Then you have to be more hierarchical. And if you want to bring this into reality, you have to be hierarchical again. So what you have to learn is to switch between two different forms of the same company. Just once you are more or less a network, and in the other time you are a hierarchy as it should be. So you should be able to go between these two states and just change it as you want. So what we have to learn as leadership excellence is it's not enough to optimize. It's even not enough to coach the people. What we have to do in the next years is we have to inspire, we have to go from the best practice to the next practice part, and we have to network. So what we have to do is we have to round up our ability to do leadership. Because this is, for me, one of the major tasks we have in the next years. When there is a change in the decision-making processes, when we have to open up concerning collective intelligence, then we have to change our leadership behavior. Otherwise, it will not work. We have to change the culture in the company, and changing the culture is any time a top-down process. Without changing leadership behavior, nothing will change at all. So my fifth success factor is as trivial as it is. It's leadership excellence. Be flexible in adapting leadership behavior to the different requirements of best and next practice. Try to be as complete as possible in your leadership abilities, because you have to change very quick from the one to the other, and you have to be both a hierarchical person and a networker. Otherwise, it will not work. So for me, to sum it all up, I would say the use of the full potential of collective intelligence of all people in our companies and this is for me a very tricky thing, in our societies, will be the major task we have to solve together in the next decades. When I would look to the political part, I would say we have a real problem of democracy in the moment, because the people are stepping back from being part of it. And when this is happening in politics, we have a real problem. When this is happening in a company, it's a pity. So whatever we should do is we should try everything to get the people in, to motivate them by fascination, to enhance connectivity, by whatever we can do in the sense of technological basis. And the third thing we should do is we should have something like a common identity to be shared. We should have a value system which enables collective intelligence. Thank you for your kind attention.
I haven't got a microphone. Oh, there we go.
Everything's off, huh?
Go on, follow that.
Hard stuff, a bit far off, huh?
Come on, I know you're all sinking.
Yeah.
Can I risk one?
Yeah, please risk one.
This is very risky because I mean.
Yeah.
Thanks for. Do I need a mic? Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay, I'm going to try a question.
Yeah.
My name is Pierre. I work for Unilever. I come from the principle that choices are individual.
Yeah.
So, then my question, because you talk about collective intelligence, you also talk about the wisdom of the crowd,
yeah.
which for me is a bit bizarre. But
yeah.
what's the risk of group thinking in that sort of phenomenon you described there?
There is a real risk. Maybe you know the Marquis de Condorcet. He was in 1700, he was a very interesting person. He said, when we have wisdom of the crowd in the sense of a democratic decision, then anyone in the system has to be a little bit over random. When we are all a little bit over random, when our knowledge is enough to contribute something, then in the group we will be at one, we will be best. But if we're in the middle, not above random, then it is going down to zero. So what we have to have is a basic information process in the whole system. If you want to invite others to be decisive, you have to inform them. Otherwise you get into a real problem. This is the first part, the Condorcet principle. And the second,
You're talking about feedback loops.
Yeah, the feedback loops. And the second thing is you should not try to bring away the responsibility from you. Because if you're using a network and you're trying to dissolve the responsibility in the network, then you no longer function as an hierarchical system. And whenever you are trying to be responsible for the capital you have earned from someone, you have to be hierarchical. So in politics, it may be good to have something like a bottom democracy, not in the company. In the company, the value system is made top-down. And it has to be like this. So please don't dissolve the responsibility in the network. So you have to be a network concerning the information, but not concerning the responsibility. And this is the second biggest fault one can have. The first is when there is not a basic information in the system, then it's just for nonsense. And the second is if you try to give away responsibility, you try to do something you shouldn't.
Well, if nothing else, you win the Bravery Prize. Okay. Yes, please.
You mentioned that a complex problem has to be solved by a solution system even more complex.
Yeah.
When you think now to the financial market where we are, what would be your answer then?
The financial system wasn't more complex, it was just more looking for profit. And this was the problem. So what we have there is not a problem of the organization, it's a problem of the ethics in the financial market. So what is going wrong is that the people have separated from the real stuff. And they have tried to be intelligent in a way which is not intelligent for the system, but which is intelligence for the person. And this is always something which can happen but should not. And when we are now crying for the regulative power of the state again, we should realize that the principles of the state are regional. And what we need is something like a control power which is not regional but international. So if we try to control now by regions, it will not solve the problem. So just crying for the state will not solve our problem. We have to think about new forms of control which is more or less ethically fundamental, and where people are more or less as a civil society responsible for something. It's no longer, and this cannot be a problem of politicians alone. But as I said, I think this is an ethical problem, not a problem of intelligence or complexity of systems.
This gentleman, please.
My name is Bortoluzzi, Tetra Pak.
Yeah.
The question is, I found fascinating the word fascinating.
Yeah.
The problem is with commodities products. How would you elaborate on this?
No, fascination is not something which is product bound. It's communication bound. Give me anything, I can make it fascinating if I'm fascinated. So what we have here in the next years is something like a task for the leaders. If I'm losing my feu sacre, if I not have this flame in myself, how should I be fascinating to someone else? So the question I'm asking myself is anytime, am I really any longer in this fascination or not? If I'm not, I'm no longer an entrepreneur. And the entrepreneur is the one driving a system because he's fascinated, he's able to take personal risk in the sense of responsibility and in the sense of trying to fascinate others. This is a personal thing, and so it's not bound to the product. It's bound to the person creating the product. And I think everything I have seen, most of the things, can be fascinating if someone is behind who really burns for this. I don't know whether this was an answer for what you've asked, but yeah.
This lady.
Hi, my name is Lara Moutin. I work in Unilever. This speech was worth for me coming to Vienna,
Thanks
honestly.
Thanks a lot.
And having grown up in a country where there was war, Beirut, during the war times, I'm a big believer in emotional intelligence that prevails over the rest. And having done my studies at the Jesuits, that amplifies the empathy part, so inspiration, this is music to our ears. How do you mobilize an organization to bring entrepreneurial spirit, intrapreneurial within the company, where you still have risk-averse persons who will hide behind intellectual and rational criteria.
Yeah. What you should do is not address this in the sense you have to, because this is senseless. Do it like the Jesuits you mentioned. They are doing exercises. Exercises are really good. When you invite the people into exercises where they can figure out that having the information gives you the freedom to decide, and when you, for example, create networks in the company, what we have done, for example, we have created big events where we put in the company, for example, 500 laptops, all connected in a situation like this, and we start to think together on strategy, for example. And no one can limit the network. So whatever is coming up is there. No one can say this is not a good idea. So what we create is exercises where the cultures are learning that giving freedom to a system is a good solution and not a problem. And when you do these exercises some more often, when the people realize that they have freedom and they can use it, then they start to change their mindset. It's not possible to change a culture by addressing the culture, because the culture is an intangible. And this we have really to learn. We cannot do it directly like management. Cultural management is a nonsense word, because you cannot manage culture. What you can do is you can set up values and you can try to live them. And if you do exercises where these values are the basis, then you change the value system of the culture and therefore the people afterwards. Because what we share with each other is a culture. We are all part of a culture, and when the culture is changed, we are changed. We are changing the culture, and the culture is changing us. So we have a circular causality. This is what we have to accept. We are part of something, and we create it in the same time. So it's a very powerful tool to change the culture by exercises, not by words.
Sorry, this gentleman.
Microphone doesn't work.
Hello, this is Omar from IT Technologies. You said that to tackle complex network cross problems, at least one way is to go with complex solutions. What is your view in terms of dividing the problem into sub-problems?
Yeah,
and tackling one by one, which is basically all companies they do right now. They go, for instance, pure automation or inventory management, or it doesn't mean that we're ignoring the other problems, but
they try it analytically. This is what I wanted to show with this Ursus Verli, with this cleaning up art. Whenever you try to do it step by step, part by part, you lose the chance to see the total pattern. This is a real problem. This was a basic problem for for medicine, for example. They tried to understand the complex organism just by dividing it into parts. And there is something lost. And it's not only the psychologists thinking of holistic things. Today, also the people who are close to biological system know that there is more than the sum of the parts. And this is what our brain can detect. So if you are ready to accept to have too much information, if you're ready to accept to have the pain of too big complexity, then your brain is working at its best. So to put it short, intuition is the sum of your experiences at the edge of understanding. When you're no longer able to understand, then intuition comes in. But we have a big problem with intuition. When the situation where you have learned your intuitive pattern formation is changed, then your intuition is no longer right. So the big thing with intuition is you have to figure out whether the person intuitively deciding has the right background for the decision. Because the person is just saying, totally convinced this is the right way. And it can be the totally wrong way. Therefore, what I do not like any longer is individual intuition. I try to measure collective intuition. This is something I would have to show you from the method, but I think we can do so. And I've realized, for example, that when you interview 100 people on an emotional part, you can even predict developments in the society. We have, for example, measured 100 people to the topic of mobility in 2007. And we could already shown in 2007 that the premium part of cars is going down. So the people had already, because they are part of a culture, the intuition that something is happening. So to have this collective intuition is for me the best answer, because the individual intuition may be totally wrong.
Hi, I'm Steve Baker from Dematic. Fascinating presentation. I didn't expect to ask this question. Are you optimistic or pessimistic about the future of human civilization?
Oh, this is a very good question. Yeah, it's just for the evening. Yeah, I have a big optimism, but it's not driven by the trivial idea of something like a worldwide consciousness. The people are talking in the moment, when they are talking about the internet, they are talking about the big solution, a worldwide consciousness created by the internet. This is not true, because the internet is very bad concerning the limbic system. The internet is very good in connectivity and very good in mobilization. But the value system in the internet is just statistics. So I'm very critical when I look at the internet that this is really a solution, but I know when we would be able to produce something like an automatic understanding in the internet, in the sense of language disambiguation, then we could create something like a big consciousness, but we are not there in the moment. So the whole internet is waiting for the next step. If you don't solve the value problem in the internet, you will get rubbish. The more information is in, the less value, because you cannot differentiate between the nonsense and the good thing and so on. And this is what is happening in the moment. Maybe you have seen in the German newspaper Spiegel, they have said, "Is the internet making us stupid?" was the headline. And the answer is, in the moment, yes, but not necessarily on the long run. Because when we solve the semantic problem in the internet, we should have a chance to have discourse or deliberation processes on a bigger scale. And if we really would be able to do this, deliberation not in a small group, but deliberation in a big network, then we could be able to solve our problems. But this is more or less science fiction in the moment, to be honest. It's not solved. Everyone is investing. For example, the German officials are investing, I think, 80 million in developing of semantic procedures for the internet in the moment. Worldwide, it should be a few hundred millions. They all know the problem, but they don't have a solution. And when you have social tagging or things like this, don't think this is a solution, because the people are using the words in different concepts. And this is the real problem. How can I know, when you are talking to me about innovation, that your concept of innovation is the same than mine? When we have deliberation with each other, I can figure out what your meaning is. But in the internet, I cannot talk to each one over the number is too big, and I'm too short in connection. Therefore, I have a big problem. We have to have discourse, deliberation, or conversation on a big scale. Otherwise, we will not solve our problems on the long run. We have to have a worldwide deliberation process with millions of people. To design this is not easy to do. I hope we are doing a little step in this direction, but this is for me the biggest project I could see for mankind in the moment. So a big answer to a big question.
Where do you place the boundary between collective intelligence and manipulation?
And manipulation?
Yeah.
Oh, so we have to talk a little bit about manipulation, because manipulation is nothing more than good communication with different targets. When your target is not mine and I'm a good communicator, then I'm manipulative. If your target is mine and I'm a good communicator, then it's just good communication. Nothing more. So it's decided on the ethical basis again. When you want to have collective intelligence, maybe there's a lot of manipulation in, but if we share a value system, if we share a common target, it's okay. The big question I have any time when I'm working in networks is, do we really have the same value system? Do we really share a common target? If we don't try to be a network. It will not work on the long run, because you will detect that it's not real. When I'm in a network, I'm open to everything. In a network, I don't keep information back. I have to be open with information. But if the other one is not sharing my value system, this is for me a catastrophe. So I have first of all find out what the value system is, and you can be sure I'm working on the tit-for-tat principle. When you are once cheating me in a network, you never get information from me again. Never, ever. And you can try again as long as you want, you're out. I have to be so strict because I cannot control you any day. So my biggest punishment is to cut off connectivity. It's the biggest punishment I can think of. It's the only one I really use. So when someone is cheating me, he's just out of my network. That's all. Nothing more.
One more question. Please.
Look, from the laser. When I listen to you, I feel that, and maybe wrongly, but that in the future, the gap between those who are part of the system and those who aren't, those who understand and cannot understand, those who are rich versus poor, maybe north versus south, that this gap will even increase, although currently a lot of things tend to bring things together. So what's your view on this?
If we are going on the technological level, and there are a lot of people in the moment investing a lot, for example in India and anywhere, to bring the young people in the network. There's a lot of money given for this, because I think that this difference between rich and poor is no longer created by information. This will change a lot. When this information part is open for everyone, and this is only a